Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable, and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Back to our normal Sunday night recording, episode 66. We're going to do our candidate Q&A part 2 for you this evening. We have a few questions that were left off the list that we didn't get to before. We'll get those first, and got a few good listener questions coming in, and we'll touch on those. So, other than that, it's just going to be me, Bill, and James this evening. So, how was your week, James?
The post office was normal for us. Everybody worrying and waiting to figure out what their rec score is going to be. And then what are we going to dispute this time that they're going to throw back in our face and say no contest and stuff like that. No resolution or whatever they want to say on that.
No action required.
Yeah, no action required. We don't want to do anything with it, so here's your dispute back with no result. But then come the weekend, final weekend at the Model Railroad Museum, possibly forever. So it was a somber closing that we did today. Hopefully the results are going to be different and they'll open up for the next season next fall, and we'll see. But now we're here to do the Q&A, and I'm excited to get this going. So how was your week, Bill?
Oh, it was fair to middling until Friday. Normally Thursdays my Amazon driver has off, so I'm always, excited to come in and find 2 hampers at my case. And Friday morning I came in and I found 2 hampers at my case and approximately 14 feet of stacked parcels on the floor. I was like, okay, what the hell happened? I did a bit of a Tetris on the one side of my truck and filled it all the way up to the back of the driver's compartment and had enough room to work my front end, on the left side. But between the tubs of spurs and the big ones, I was like, okay, I got to go outside to change my mind if I want to, because it got tight in there. Weather-wise, it was pretty good. Slipping back into late spring weather again, cool and windy and everything. But all in all, it was a good week. How about you, Kristen?
Yeah, it wasn't a bad week. Monday was, a Monday. It was the heaviest Monday we've had in quite a while, honestly. Tuesday was lighter than dirt. And then I earned a little OT by going and covering the aux route when I got done. And, I was done with both routes by 3:30, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Yeah, it was light, because I got back to the office from my route at 12:58 p.m. So, Wednesday, normal. Thursday, normal. Friday, normal. Saturday, I did go in on my K-Day as a DACA-Y and did a ride-along with the one RCA that I didn't train when he started, just as Christmas was starting up. Just kind of see where he was struggling with some pointers and help him out and make any corrections needed. And there was a few, but, just small tweaking, getting him on the right track. So that all worked out. Other than that, that's pretty much been my week. Do it all over again starting tomorrow. So, guys, go ahead, James.
Like you're rubbing it in. It sounds like you're rubbing it in that you're getting off early all the time.
Not all the time. I mean, Friday was a 2:30 day.
See, she's rubbing it in.
Rubbing it in. Yeah, hello. I got done at 6:20. Okay, thank you very much.
Does it help? It was like 5:30 on Monday, 6 o'clock.
No.
Does it help? Does it help when you get 23 certifieds in one day?
No.
Okay.
I was over evaluation Monday. Just putting that out there. I was over evaluation on Monday. But no, the rest of the week. No. I even sat down and did 2 hours worth of mapping on my getting my line of travel where it needed to be under the LTM system one day, and still clocked out at 4 o'clock. But it's been light this week. What can I say? I'm sorry, guys.
And if you guys want to join in on the chat and you're listening to this as it's been recorded, you just have to join our Discord server. The link is available on our Facebook group. #shameless plug.
And then just put your hand up to be a speaker.
Yeah.
And James say, the lady there in the pink sweater, will you all try to get an updated PO63 done? Yes.
The issue there is management is unwilling to update things. And so when updates do come out, they usually come out as a notice from the union or in the contract, it says this part no longer applies, things like that. But it hasn't been updated since 2011. The M38 hasn't been updated in a long, long time.
The PO603, it was brought to my attention that they are updating the PO603, and therefore what I'm qualifying as a unscanned parcel no longer fits in those requirements. I said, do you have a finished version of the 603? And they said no. I said, do we have an agreed upon version of the 603? No. I said, therefore, the only thing that's still in effect is the old PO603. Therefore, we will go by those standards. Nothing like having somebody just stand there and look at you without a clue of what to say to you.
It's the old deer and, the old deer and headlights look.
Oh God, yes. Yes. I love arguing with people who don't know the contract, let alone any other resources that they should be, studying at home, putting in their time and effort like we do. But
I make a copy of the contract available to every carrier in my office. I have an email. When I had an extra bound copy somebody asked me for, I gave them the extra copy. Anytime they want it, and hey, yeah, I've got it in a PDF on my phone. What's your email address? And I send it off to them. I don't have a problem doing that. Then I know everybody in my office has a contract. Whether or not they want to read it and fight for themselves is completely on them. But I make sure they have the information.
Well, not only that, but you have a ton of manuals uploaded on our site.
I have a ton of manuals uploaded on my phone with its own homepage.
Well, most of us can't get into your phone, but they can get into Discord and do the manuals there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just today uploaded the injury handbook to our Discord.
Oh, I saw that.
Which is something a lot of rural carriers don't know we have. We actually have an injury handbook and how to deal with on-the-job injuries in OWCP. So it's been uploaded to our Discord server. You can actually find it there. If you're not on our Discord server, you can find the link in our Facebook group. #shameless plug.
Uh-huh. Hey, once in a while, you got to do that.
But the key is
#get your t-shirts here.
Oh yeah. We've. I was gonna plug that too. You were reading my mind, Bill. Yeah. any of the podcast t-shirts, candidate t-shirts, and other souvenirs on our web store. I do have the link to that in the show notes, as well as in the groups, and Discord server has its own merchandise channel with that link as well. And of course, anybody else that asks, I have not a problem sending you a copy.
Now, here's a footnote for the pictures I posted on several of the sites. That young lady her name is Kristen White. She is no longer a union member. She is a friend of mine. I trained her as an RCA. She was my sub of record for a while. She's now a regular for almost 10 years. She is not a union member, but she wore that shirt, and then she looked at the back. When she saw the back, she goes, "Oh, I don't endorse the union." I says, "You don't have to. You endorse me." And she goes, "Oh, hell, I'll do that." There's a non-union member. You want to get non-union members involved? There you go. People who believe in someone like myself.
Yep.
She goes, if you're president, I'll join. She goes, but the rest of these people aren't worth shit. And I'm like, no argument here. But she's a sweetheart, and she modeled that shirt for me, and said, I'll plug it for you. I said, there you go.
So, I'm going to go to the first question that we had left over from last time. Actually, we had a couple of them, so I'll go in here. Being that the World Craft is salary evaluated pay, would you try and change the rules about clock-in times such that people currently working off the clock would be able to clock in when they arrive to the unit? That is posed to all three.
I'm going to argue against that. My office, everybody reports at 8:30, even though we have different size routes and evaluations. Should allow for the larger routes to come in earlier. But for simplicity's sake, management has us all come in at 8:30 so that we can have at least 80% of our mail available to us. If you come in and you clock in right away, how do you control whether or not the people are taking all the mail out with them? Because somebody might have a doctor's appointment at 2:00 and might skip, the last minute pickup at the hot case or the flats, all that. And we have that situation with several carriers who are super fast, leaving the office before everything is distributed, including missorted parcels and spurs. So is it easier to control off the clock issues by having everybody there at the same time? Yes, it's easier for management. It's easier for other carriers to pay attention to the disparity of treatment going on in the office. So, no, I would vote against that unless you had attentive management, and I haven't seen that in years. So, no, I would not go for that. My opinion.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm going to agree with Bill on that, and there's several reasons why. The very first portion of this, as he said, the 80% of mail should be up at your start time. There's a lot of offices that even at your start time, 80% of the mail's not up. Letting carriers come in even earlier and work off the clock or clock in early only hampers them in that aspect too, because they're standing around waiting for mail when they're working off the clock as it is. But you also have another caveat in mail delivery, and it's in the PO 603 and it's in the M38, and that is that you should arrive to your customers' mailboxes around the same time every day. So if you're coming in on a Monday and starting at 7:00 because it's a heavy day, then you may get to your customers' mailboxes at the same time you do Tuesday through Friday. But management should be managing the office to ensure that there is an even flow of mail across the entire week. If management's not maintaining that even flow of mail, then you're not going to be at your customers' mailboxes at the same time every day. Of course, as we know, parcel volumes vary significantly from day to day. So there's too many things that can go wrong in that situation. But I do agree with allowing them to punch in 5, maybe 10 minutes early if they arrive in the office and start working, but not an hour, 2 hours early, like some people would suggest. But giving us a grace period, especially with these crappy scanners and the time it takes to log into them and so on and so forth, would be beneficial. We do have that in the ELM of the 5-minute grace period for clock rings. But they're saying it doesn't apply to rural because we're using scanners, but it still applies to city and clerks, even though they're now clocking in on the scanners. So I would go for that specifically instead of the let them clock in when they arrive and hold management accountable to the carriers working off the clock. My opinion.
Next question.
Do you have opinion, Kristen? I said all three. Do you have opinion?
I kind of have to agree with the guys. I mean, I can understand. I would definitely like to see a 5, maybe 10-minute leeway. I mean, that could be weather conditions. That could be, anything. It's the ones that are blatantly coming in a half hour, 45 minutes early, working off the clock, that definitely hurt the craft as a whole. I mean, one way that my office kind of fixed that a little bit is they have this, our start times are on Mondays and after holidays are 7:30, and it's 8 o'clock the rest of the week. Our 4240s and in the system, they have the start time as 7:30 throughout the whole week. So if we come in on Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday at 7:45, it's not a big deal. But again, that's, management did that for those select handful of carriers that normally come in on a regular 15-20 minutes early. But yeah, like I said, if you're there working, you should be on the clock, and management shouldn't be allowing the off the clock, but there definitely should be a leeway in writing outside of the ELM in agreement. All right, we're ready for the next one?
Yep.
Always.
All right. If the situation presented itself in the course of contract negotiations, would any of you be in favor of establishing a list of regular rural carriers that wanted to work on Sundays and other routes? I am cognizant of the fact that this would be done so as not to mandate any regular rural carrier to work additional hours. I also have another question in roughly the same vein. Would it be possible to push for a system that would allow regular rural carriers to transfer across state lines similar to that city carriers have? Whereas if a route is open in office, they can just go to that office rather than having to go through the mutual transfer process. All right, two-part question. We'll go back to the contract negotiation parts about having a list for, basically, to me, it would be equivalent to the city's overtime desired list. I think we've talked about this in the past in other episodes as well. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to answer now since I'm talking. And no, I would not be in favor of establishing a regular rural carriers overtime desired list. That's for the fact that, that just opens those floodgates to mandate those regulars all the time, every time. And takes away the volunteer thing. Like I said, with the current things where it's sounding of them impeding on the Article 8, which covers the Sundays, and the Article 30 on you're only being responsible for your one route. They're already looking at something that what it is, we don't know. But no, I am not for an overtime desired list equivalent for the rural side. Bill?
Well, there's already a list for Sunday that you can sign up for. So, I'm not against that. In regards to the overtime desired list like the city carriers, also, again, no. It's a opportunity for disparity according to people that the management likes. It's one of those situations where you're going to get into a conundrum because now if you do that, the 2080 and 2240 situation pops up at the end of the calendar year. And we've already seen where people are getting letters of demand for that due to management's failure to hire and retain RCAs. I'm definitely against that because the next step would be, as we've discussed previously, that some form of that language would be worked into the contract and regulars would be forced to work on other routes.
I agree. With any contract negotiation, when you're sitting down and you're discussing things with the postal management, the one thing that needs to be on your mind in every single point that you make and every single argument that management makes is how will this affect the craft in the next 3 contracts? because you have to think down the road, how is management going to try and work this to their advantage? How is management going to try and change this in the next contract to affect the rural carriers? How is management going to abuse carriers with this? We already see it with the current MOU. We have carriers contacting us all the time telling us that management is forcing them to cover other routes. They're having them cover other routes on their scheduled day off when it says in the MOU that they cannot be forced to cover other routes on their scheduled day off. So management got an inch and is already taking that mile without even having our current leadership try to shoehorn it into our current coming up contract. So, no, we are not going to become like city carriers with an overtime desirability list, with carriers working extra overtime hours. Our contract should include enough pay for the carriers to live comfortably in a middle-class lifestyle, matching that of current private sector industries like the federal law says they have to. And adding these things into our contract will just turn around and be abused and abused and abused by management. And we cannot stand for management abusing and harassing our carriers anymore.
Are we ready for the next one, gentlemen?
Of course.
Always.
I would like to hear your proposition for the process of converting an RCA to a PTF within 2 years. I am curious, since that our rules in this craft dictate that a regular carrier is assigned to a specific route. How would you assign an RCA that has converted to career status if no route is open in the office? Within the 50-mile rule still apply when the said employee on call receive any pay for being on call?
Okay, I'll take this one first since I put that resolution forward and got it passed at National Convention this past year. I put through a resolution that RCAs will become career RCAs. And the reason why I wanted them to be RCAs and not become a PTF is twofold. Number one, the fact is a PTF right now in our contract is required to have a minimum of 2 routes. And there are some offices where the RCA only has 1 route, but they do go out and work other offices to do it. So they would still be an RCA working under the same RCA rules and regulations, just having the career portion added to their bottom line. They would start earning retirement, start doing TSP and all that other stuff, just like the PTFs do now. And on top of that, unlike our PTFs who have to pay full dues to the union like a regular carrier that works 5 days a week, even though 5 or 6 days a week, even though they only work a minimum of 2 days a week, a career RCA would continue to have the RCA rate of dues paid to the union, allowing them to at least take home a little bit more, but still be involved in the union. Because I believe our RCAs are definitely not paid enough, don't take home enough to be able to support themselves to be stuck as an RCA for longer than 2 years or 3 years or 17 years, like one of them in my office. They can't afford to do that anymore. So we need to find a way to turn around and build up our RCAs and give them some kind of benefits that help them, because you have RCAs that are working 10, 15 years before becoming regular. And then they have to work another 20 years on top of that in order to earn a stable retirement. And it's unfortunately causing them to work until they're 70 years old. And people shouldn't have to work until they're 70, 75 years old just to be able to earn enough retirement to retire somewhat comfortably. I want a career RCA, not a PTF promotion because you've earned either 2080 hours or 2 years, but just an RCA position that gets career benefits. Your thoughts, Bill?
Well, I really liked your idea of the 2080 hour formula. in regards to attaining the RCA career position. I did say PTF, and yes, your point is exactly on in regards to dues allocation for the career position, and the RCAs wouldn't be earning that much. So I don't say I'm staying corrected, but I am saying that that's a better idea. I also would turn around and negotiate on the contract to get it down to a 25-mile radius, because of the fact that they're using as the crow flies. And if you're driving 50 miles within a 50-mile radius to cover another office, that could actually end up being 70 some miles. So you're spending an hour and a half on a road trying to get to another office that you normally would be spending 15 minutes to attend your home office. In regards to the qualifications, the 2080 I think is a good idea. But I also think that anybody who has gotten past their probationary period, and I'm talking 90 days, calendar days, not 90 work days, but anybody who's gotten past 90 calendar days has proven worthwhile as an RCA should be allowed to bid for a career position, whether they want to go to the PTF or a vacant route in their office or another office after it goes district wide. That way, we would be able to fill these routes. We have 15 PTF positions in my district that were posted the other week. And after being up there, they filled 7. Well, how sad is that somebody doesn't want a $5 an hour raise to take that position? And as Josh had pointed out, there's a lot of offices that don't have, all the J routes, and they've changed the language in that, Josh. I'm not sure. I don't recall reading that, but if that is true, that would be nice that you only need 1 K route. But even then, it's not enough hours for an individual as a PTF, regardless of the rate of pay.
Especially paying full dues.
Yes.
And I want to point out the comment that one of our listeners in the live stages put out. She said, I like the career RCA as I am an aux carrier, and if I would have to convert to a PTF, I would lose my aux route.
So no, especially I like that idea for the career RCA, and going on what I was talking to myself about, especially those carriers that have those nice aux routes. Not talking the baby routes like my 2.5-hour route in my office, but those nice 25 to 35-hour aux routes that is substantial enough for somebody that's just looking to do that, and that's all they do 6 days a week is just that nice little aux route. What's wrong with them having benefits for it? I could totally see that as a career RCA, because like they stated, as a PTF, you're going to lose that aux route. So, and there's plenty of RCAs that have those nice aux routes that don't want to do anything else, may not want a full-time route, aren't necessarily looking to go career on a full-time route. They like what they have. It works with their schedule. There's no reason why, after a certain amount of time, they shouldn't be able to have career benefits and still be an RCA.
We did talk to an RCA who is on an aux route and is the only route in the office. Imagine if that carrier was career during the entire time he's on that route. He could actually retire from that route as an RCA with career benefits. Because if that route never goes up to a full route and he's the only person working that route, wouldn't he deserve career benefits for working that route for 20, 25, 30 years?
And then to go back to your second part there, Kristen, about transferring offices.
Yes.
Again, if you go through the normal in-office and district-wide posting and nobody accepts, the bid on that particular route, somebody from across the country should be able to bid on that route.
Yes, and I had a resolution that went to national and passed at national just for that. And I even had the timelines listed out, the bidding process. I don't have it right in front of me for the exact amount of time that I put in there. But, the normal bidding process is 10 days. So why don't we extend it to, I think it was like 15 or 20 days? giving, people across the country a chance. It would fit in between after the district posting, returning back to office, and then prior to it getting listed to the street is when the national bidding part would come up. And then each of the dates were extended, but however, it did state, where we're normally be placed within 21 days of the route. I think it was like 45. That give them a chance to get moved, relocated, get some things set up that they need to get set up. However, moving expenses for something like that national bidding would be on the carrier.
Yes.
But yeah, I did have a resolution that did pass at national this past year, just precisely for that. Yeah.
There's a follow-up question in the chat.
I don't have that up. I got the spreadsheet up. Let me look.
It says
posted everywhere.
Well, it would go up on the e-bidding. But yeah, it would be the same thing. Like how many times I've seen district postings go up. They may got pinned to the bulletin board, but they were never announced in the office. I mean, again, that's going to come down to it's part of the bidding process. It needs to be announced in all the offices and put on the bulletin board.
Wow. Like the National Rural Letter Carrier Association could put it on Facebook or something like that too.
Yeah. I was going to say if National could put it out. Yeah.
Hey, national biddings for these routes, even on the website, or I know enough carriers with the 80, was it in Wisconsin? They had 80 PTF positions go up this past week. Something like that. It wouldn't be difficult to put it out there saying, hey, we've got some national bidding listings up. Go check your e-job bidding if you're interested. Stuff like that. I mean, it wouldn't be too difficult to do. And then if it for some reason still didn't fill, then go to the outside hiring. It would just be that one extra step between the second time it went back to the office prior to going to the street for hiring. But I definitely, that would definitely be for that, because anybody I know that's tried to get a mutual transfer, if they're lucky to get one, it's a 2, 3, 4-way transfer if they're lucky to find one.
That brings a question to mind for me. I have 26 years and I want to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. Oh no, that's too close to Josh. I want to move to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I accept a position down there. Why should I lose my seniority when I move down there?
No, that would be a good one. I agree with that too. I think your seniority should carry with you. I mean, I get for the RCAs when you transfer offices, you still keep your time of service in. So if you're lucky enough to transfer into an office that doesn't have RCAs with a year in, you can leapfrog over them if something comes up for bid. But yeah, I think and you should be able to keep your seniority. That's how I feel on that. If you're a regular carrier and you did a national bid, got awarded, moved down there, you should be able to keep your seniority.
You would keep your years, but just like when you do a district bid, the office you go into, you'd become the low man on the totem pole, unfortunately.
For district, but not for the local office.
But not for local office. District, right. You go to lowest seniority in the office, but you'd still have your same years in as a regular.
Yeah, there was the other question that somebody asked, what are the 3 ideas that you would fight tooth and nail for in the contract, James?
Well, one of the things I would fight for is maintaining the one route per regular carrier, because our current leadership has said that's probably one of the things they're looking at taking off the table, taking out of the contract. And I know a lot of carriers that if that were to come out of the contract, probably quit their jobs because they love their route, they love their customers, they love doing the route that they do because they know it inside and out. Our system for rural carriers knowing their routes is so tantamount to the service that we provide to those customers that is one thing I will never, ever give up in our contract. The next thing I would fight tooth and nail for is the route evaluations. The route evaluations need to be fixed. The fact that we're sitting there and we have to verify more letters than a DPS machine at the plant per minute. 16 letters per minute more than a DPS machine. I would be fighting tooth and nail to try and find every way to get every single second I can out of every value of the rec system. And then the third thing I would be fighting for is for the benefits of the carriers. The benefits are the biggest draw to this company, to this organization, to this service. The benefits that we have right now are small. We don't have competitive pay right now. Our benefits are starting to lack, especially with the lack of RCAs. Management treating us like dirt. There are a lot of benefits in the contract right now, but we can always increase the benefits that the carriers get. And so I'd be fighting for the best things for carriers that I could ever get in a contract. How about you, Bill?
Oh, the first thing I do is go after table 2 and table 4. That is a real sharp stick in my side. Me and my wife went shopping today. We go to the local junk food store. We bought one item that was expensive. It was a $49 piece of meat, which I cut into 4 thick slabs of steak. So basically, it comes down to about $12.50 a slice, and that'll give us 2 meals out of it. And that was the most expensive item that we bought, but we spent over $190. We're making good money, and I struggle to understand how other people are making it on table 2, because our gas just jumped 30 cents a gallon again. Why? I don't know. The oil companies will tell you they're switching from winter fuel production over to summer gasoline production or some such nonsense. But how are people doing it on table 2? They've got to be struggling, and it's not right. And like you said, by federal law, we are supposed to be competitive with other industries of our nature, and we're not. And I find it appalling. So the tables have to go. To echo James' thoughts in regards to rec has to be changed, and not changed the way the post office, because every time I turn around, every single change I see is in their favor, especially when you get to the disputes and you get everything back saying no action required, or you don't get the disputes back. The third thing I would change is the national steward system, of course, with the help of the new director of steward operations, James Brennan, in regards to reacting to situations that are affecting our carriers, our brothers and sisters out there, because this is out of hand with the hostile work environment, constant contract breaking, intimidation, people walking off the job, knowing, they've got bills to pay and they just can't take it. Are you kidding me? This is asinine. It's absurd to be in this day and age where the federal government lays down the law about how you treat employees, how you create a atmosphere at work with rules against that, and they violate it more than anybody. They are the biggest violators of human rights that I know of, and it appalls me. And this is why we're running for office. Is this going to be fun for us? No, but it's what we want to do. It's in our blood to fight for you. Nobody else is stepping up to fight for you. If you look at the national conventions, the only people running for the national offices are the same people you've seen for the last 10 years. Every once in a while, you get a new person up there. That's only because one of the old timers retired, got forced out, whatever. But again, those people are handpicked by the national board to ascend to those positions. And it's time to put an end to it.
Okay.
What about you, Kristen? What 3 things would you fight tooth and nail for?
I'm gonna jump on that bagwagon, of course, of table 2 and table 4. They absolutely need to go. As being a recent table 4 RCA and now a table 2 regular carrier, yes, you do take a net pay cut. I understood that from going on, but it's not anywhere near what I need to get by. If I wasn't in a 2-income household, I would not be able to get by with kids as a single mom. Not today. Maybe 10 years ago, making what I make right now, yeah, I probably could have done it without a problem. But not now. There's no way. Not at all. So yeah, definitely table 2, table 4 would be number 1 for me.
And it isn't funny that our president says, well, this allows people who want to make more money. It's not a matter of wanting to make more money. It's the need to make more money, Don.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Everybody wants to make more money so they don't have to work the overtime. But when they have to work the overtime or assist on other routes, it's because they need to. There's a difference, Don.
Absolutely.
It's survival.
It is. If it was just me and my kids, I would be working all the overtime I could get. I did volunteer and got overtime one day, on this last pay period, one day each week. But that wasn't because I needed to. It was because I wanted to help out those RCAs that needed the help those days. or I didn't have a problem not knowing that they didn't contact the RCAs first, but, I didn't have a problem on a light day picking up the aux route. So, yeah, there's a difference. But like I said, if I was completely on my own, yeah, I'd be taking it wherever I could get it because the only way I'd be able to survive, barely. So, yeah, Table 2, Table 4, and the Article 30 protection that needs to stay right where it is. It doesn't need to change. And the same with the Article 8 for Sunday work. Let's not get rid of those for something that's going to make management think they can twist it around for something that it isn't. So that's 2. And then the third one would definitely be more transparency in Rex. And a way for carriers to actually, on the regular, confirm their totals and their daily numbers. Where's the transparency we're always supposed to get? Well, I want that in writing in the contract about the transparency. And I want that transparency available to every carrier. So those would be my 3 top things. And that kind of leads us into the next question right here. Regarding the REX system, assuming that is here to stay until perpetuity, excuse me for not pronouncing stuff correctly, how do you 3 propose that we can train and inspire our fellow carriers in this craft to firstly take the system seriously, and secondly to train new hires in addition to the training that they receive in Academy? I am also curious if by some miracle the REX system could be abolished and a new, more equitable system being negotiated. Well, I'm going to go ahead. Otherwise,
Basically, the REX system is here to stay, and it is basically or fundamentally supposed to be a sound system where we get paid for everything we do. Again, like the old system, we are not, but you have to fight for it. We are now coming up on the 3rd set of results from a mini mail survey. If the first set of results of the mini mail survey performed last year, with 66% of the carriers losing pay, didn't get your attention, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what will. Surprisingly, with the second mini mail survey in September, the union didn't bother posting the results, and I wonder why. I still haven't heard anything outside of my office and several local offices in regards to the actual results. And it basically seems that, things have settled down. Some went up, some went down, depending on, the WSS controversy, the eliminations of half the time that you got credit for on the FSS flats, which will disappear completely on this mini mail survey. But I believe in the system if we have a strong enough leadership to provide us with the details, the transparency that we are entitled to, that we are supposed to get. But our leadership is not enforcing that. And the post office, they've hired enough people that are inept enough that they don't even know how to get radar reports or PTRs or anything else done for you. I believe the REX system works to a certain point, but until it's enforced and transparent, 100% transparent to every office across the country, I can't endorse it. And it is here basically forever because they've sunk too much time and money into it. Pull away from it now. They just have to keep fine-tuning it until they get it right. And we're not going to get it fine-tuned to our satisfaction until we have the proper leadership at the national board.
Go ahead, Kristen. You had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I did. My thing is far more on the training of the new hires in addition. And I mean, that falls on the carriers. That falls on if your office has an OJI. That falls on the regular if they're training. And when you have those regulars that aren't taking it seriously, they're obviously not going to be training their new RCA seriously. I do, and that was one of the reasons why I rode along Saturday with the other one. And there was REX scans in there that I was, return to unit was a big one, on when to do that one. And, some of the other ones that he had never knew about in the past that I reminded him, well, you made 2 trips to the door with those packages. Yeah, did you put those in your scanner? Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't train this RCA initially. When I go out and train, I train them on all the scans. If we have a postage due that day, I do that. A carrier pickup, we do it that way. If we got, I train them on all those scans as we're doing them out on the route. As long as, and they also get an activity scan guide and whatnot when they come into the office. But I mean, the training really does fall on the OJI and or the regular carrier. And unfortunately, trying to get some of these regular carriers who still don't take it seriously on board, that's really the hardest part, is how can we make sure that we've got everybody on the same page? I mean, that comes down to training. Yes, management's responsible for training. And yes, the union says we had all the information on the website. But that's still, I'm not going to say that's still not enough, because management didn't train. There's still offices across the board where management just, here's your scan sheet, and that was it. That's not training, because management wasn't trained properly on how to do it, or they didn't pay attention during their training, because they didn't care.
Can I interject real quick?
Go ahead.
You're right. Management didn't do any proper training, especially in my office. And thank God, I was a test office from the get-go. But I took it upon myself to train everybody because of the fact that I knew what was coming down the pike. And without management being forced to train, and even if you tried to force them to, they couldn't do it. They lacked the knowledge and the ability to train us correctly. And for the union to put it back on us by saying, well, all that information is available through the website, that's failure on their part. I'll say it that way. That they failed us as much as management has failed us.
And I'll say, and like I've said, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. Both sides have dropped the ball in this situation.
I agree. And like I said in the past, it shouldn't matter if you're a dues-paying member or not. If it's something that directly affects your wages, then you should be privy to all that information that every dues-paying member is privy to. Any information that is put out there that affects your wages should be available to all of the craft, is how I feel on that, personally.
My opinion is Rex can be a good thing, but the problem is there is so much stuff in there that takes away from carrier routes. The biggest ones of them is the coverage factor and the speed matrix. Those two things are the biggest killer of evaluations in the whole system. And if anything I would argue about is I would take the coverage factors out of the equation. I would replace that with a higher box value number. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter if you have mail for that box that day or not, you still go to that box every day. It doesn't matter if there is a mail in it, if the flag is up, or if there's no mail. You drive 100% of your route every day. You open your CBUs every day. You go to every stop on your route every day. And coverage factor is just management's way of saying, well, you didn't have mail for them, so you're not getting paid for delivering to them today. And that, to me, is a big slap in the face. And they can say, oh, breadcrumbs are matching. Breadcrumbs will help your coverage factor. Well, breadcrumbs don't help when you have a 15-box CBU. Breadcrumbs don't help when your scanner doesn't have GPS signal. Breadcrumbs don't help when carriers are stopping at every single mailbox and not getting 100% coverage every single day. Breadcrumbs aren't mattering. So why is it listed that it's part of your coverage factor? So remove the coverage factor, replace it with a higher box value, adjust the speed matrix. You have people out there in LOVs who can't even get above 35 miles an hour with the truck shaking like it's going to fall apart. You have carriers out there who are driving personal vehicles down dirt roads that haven't been maintained in 10 years. But their vehicles can make it as long as they take it gently, but they can't do 39.45 miles an hour for the 1.5 miles, 2 miles they have to drive from one box to the other. There are a lot of high mileage, low volume routes out there that are getting jacked by the speed matrix because they're out in the middle of nowhere. And it doesn't take into account anything like weather, especially in our snow states. It doesn't take into account dust storms in the south, heavy rains, flooding where you're driving slow so you don't flood your car out because you're driving down a road you probably shouldn't be going down, but you're trying to deliver all the mail. It doesn't affect any of that. And so you're working harder for less money. So those are the biggest things that I would change in the rec system, are those two items, because our carriers deserve to be paid for the work that they do. It doesn't matter if they have mail for it or not. They're still going there, so they should be paid for it.
And let's not forget the high mileage routes too, that took a real big cut in pay because
Exactly.
of the matrix.
Oh yeah, our
Exactly.
our one POV route, which has 95 miles and 485 boxes, lost 3 hours, and that was just in box value dropping and the drive speed matrix. The only reason why it lost. All right, I'm going to go on to the next one. With contract negotiations going on this year, and there being little hope of them being resolved by the time of the National Convention, what challenges do you foresee in regards to change in leadership mid-negotiations, and how do you plan to overcome those challenges?
As president, I foresee no challenges because until we have a signed contract, everything's a discussion for consideration. And if we want to change that discussion, we will. We will turn every topic around that doesn't benefit the entire craft. Now, accordingly, 400 resolutions are submitted. They like to see 20 to 30, preferably 20, according to our president, to be considered thrown into contract negotiation. I'd like to throw all 400 in there, because if I throw 400 in there, I have a better chance of having 50 or 60 stick to the wall than I will having 4 or 5 stick to the wall out of 20. And all those resolutions are passed by the membership. So they should get that representation in the negotiation. Anything that they've discussed up to now, like I said, has been a discussion. Nothing's in concrete. Nothing's been signed. Nothing's been agreed to. And if it's been agreed to, we'll agree to disagree and remove it. If it doesn't serve the craft, it's not being considered. Vice President?
I was going to say, I have to agree with Bill on that. Until it's signed and ratified or not, then there is no contract. Yeah, I would go in and ever to review all the talks that have previously occurred to see what they have agreed on and disagreed on. And if there's anything in there that was agreed upon that is not beneficiary to the craft, I'm going to bring that back to the table and say, no, I don't agree with this. If there's stuff on there that was not agreed upon, but it was talked about that benefits the craft, then I'm going to bring that back up to the table and say, okay, what do we got to do to try and get this for the craft? That's the thing, is it's got to benefit the craft as a whole. And if it's not benefiting the craft, then I don't want it as well. It may be a challenge to go in there and say, no, we don't want this. I understand you guys agreed upon this before, but we don't like this. We don't want this. Or you guys didn't agree upon this before, but we need to go back and talk about this again, because this is what the craft needs. We've been the ones that have been working for the last 10 plus years on the ground. We know we know what all these carriers are going through. This is what needs to be done.
Let me throw a quick one in there. And this gets me because of a situation in our office where we have an apartment building serviced by a rural carrier, and they have no CBUs big enough for some of the parcels, and it's a 3-floor unit, so they have to walk up and down the flights of stairs, put the package outside the apartment door. They don't get the credit for that distance.
Yeah, there is no vertical credit, and there should be.
And there should be when you do your measurements, you ought to be taking that rolling measuring wheel and going to the furthest apartment away and measuring, and then walk it back. But don't tell me that we shouldn't be getting credit for that. That's why most of our apartment complexes are serviced by highway contractors, because we don't want it on our routes.
I've got several of my condos that are second floors. And it's just not one set of steps going up to that second floor. It's a set of steps, a landing, a turn, and going up to the second floor. I totally get where you're coming from on that. I definitely think there needs to be a vertical measurement for those condos and apartment buildings that have 2 floors or more. Even though it does say in the P603 that if it's more than 2 floors without an elevator, you don't have to go up to that 3rd floor. You can leave a notice.
Well, that's not what the carriers are being told, and they're fearful for their jobs, so they actually do walk it up 3 flights.
My opinion on contract negotiations is similar to everyone else's here. Nothing is ever set in stone until it's signed, dated, and mutually agreed upon by the craft. Once the craft votes on it and says, this is what we want, that's the only time contract negotiations for that contract come to an end. I'm going to be going in right from the get-go with 3 things in mind. Number 1, is it a benefit to the craft? Number 2, is it legal following the law? And number 3, is there a way management could use it against us? Whether it be by them misinterpreting it, mismanaging it, or just ignoring the fact that it's there in the first place. I'm going to be looking for a lot of airtight language, because there are a lot of loopholes in our contract as it stands. A lot of mays and shoulds and things like that. If it's something that benefits the craft, and I don't want management using it as an abusive thing, I'm going to make sure that it will include finite words instead of open, easy loophole words. Because all too often, we see that management uses those loophole words to abuse carriers and then tell them, file a grievance. Management has gotten so bold at abusing our contracts and manuals and MOUs that they actually just look at the carrier and go, do it and then file. I'll even give you the grievance form, because they know that our current system will settle for language. And that's going to stop too. But our contract needs to be strong enough to protect the craft now and airtight enough to protect them in the next contract negotiation.
Okay. I have to agree with you that on the airtight language as well. This next one is kind of long. Might be a crazy proposition question. What would you people think about simplifying the evaluation chart? Any hours under 40 evaluated is an H route. 40 to 47.59 evaluated hours is a J route. And 48 to 58 is a K route. I think they're talking standard hours, not evaluated hours. A route evaluated 40 to 40.59 would pay at the level 40. 41 to 41.59 would be a level 41, etc. Once 48 hours is met, the chart starts back at 40 and grow 1 step per hour. Example, 50-hour route would be paid at the 42 level. This would lower the threshold for people able to get a day off and raise the pay in most instances. Keep things simple.
It's never simple.
Yeah, no.
You know, the current system is pretty beneficial in terms of hours paid. You know, because a route has to have 42 standard hours in order to become an H route. So, but that is a window of 41 and a half to almost 42 and a half. It's 1 minute shy. So if you actually have 41 and 3/4 hours, you're still getting paid for working 42 hours. Of course, there's the other side of it, the 29 minutes on the other side of 42 that you're not getting paid for. But every single one of these hours does have a half hour prior to the hour set. Adjusting it to where the hour starts at the hour would not be beneficial to the craft. And the system we have really does make it easier for carriers to have more days off also. And I don't know about you guys, but if we had a full complement of RCAs, I'm sure, and everybody was paid a fair wage, I'm sure every carrier would love to have more days off than working more hours for fewer days off. But that's just my personal opinion. How about you guys?
Well, it's funny you say about more days off because Josh responded to somebody going from a 44K to a 44H, and he put in the comment is, but you're only losing 2 days. Well, that's 2 days that you could possibly be working overtime. That's 2 days that you could be spending with your family. You know, those 2 days, the time is just as important as the money in some respect. But the thing of it is that those 2 days give you the opportunity to make more money if need be. You're not that you're guaranteed the overtime. That's in the contract. Not a guarantee, but there is an opportunity. Don't piss off that it's just 2 days. Those are 2 days of your life that you have to give the post office for the same amount of money for 10 days.
Yeah, I'm gonna say let's not try and change the evaluation hours pay charts just yet. I mean, we've got enough with Rex, and I think with the evaluation chart that we have now, it works. It's what's been there for quite a while. And unless something else happens down the road, I wouldn't even want to look at even trying to change it right now. The next one, this is the last one of the ones we didn't get to last time. Have any candidates ever served on the state board?
I've been asked and I've refused several times because of, I'll say, the corruption of my Pennsylvania State Board. Plain and simple.
Go ahead.
If you want an explanation of that, our current DR got her position for backing the national steward system against me in regards to having somebody denied as a delegate to the national convention. She was with me right up to the point where the national board made their decision, saying that I had insufficient evidence after I submitted 14 pages on this individual. The ADR at the time, part-time ADR, got the full-time ADR position when she backed up the national board with the same exact language, because our state board president was resigning. Or no, our state board DR was resigning at the time. And 2 months later, the part-time ADR got the full-time DR position, and everybody knew it before it happened.
I have ran for state board. I did last year. I have not served on our state board. However, I do go to the state board meetings as an observer, as they are open to the membership to observe. And I do go to those every chance I get. So no, I have not served state board. James?
Considering the issues surrounding the current system of electability in our union. The current process to go from just a carrier up the chain to national board is to proceed through your state system first, whether it have been through the national steward system or through your state board to get elected to the national board. And this is the way we've done it for years. For years and years and years, people have moved up through the chain of politics to the national board. And where has that gotten us? It has gotten us here, where we have Rex that has destroyed carriers, that our president says is the greatest thing since sliced bread for the craft, because everybody is now working the hours that they're being paid for. Basically, that rural carriers have had it for too good for too long. But in order to have a healthy working system, going through the process of going up the chain hasn't worked for the craft in the last 20 years. You can go through the old magazines and watch how the people moved up the chain to get into the offices in the national board. And the reason I am running for national board versus going through the system, even though I have enough years ahead of me to go through the process, is because I believe at this point it is time for people to step up that haven't been politicized, that haven't gone through the chain to get up there and had to kiss backsides in order to go up that chain. So I was not going to run for state board. I was asked to possibly run for county board by a few people in my county, but I want to make a change for this craft because I care so much about this craft. And that is why I have not served on my state board. I want to be where I can make an actual difference for the craft.
Yeah, I was just going to add in, I have served on 2 different county local boards. I do currently on mine as well. I know it's not the same by any means, but I have served on local boards and currently do. All right, so this one's kind of going to be similar in nature. How come each of you were never area or ADRs or district reps, or did you attempt or apply for that in the past?
I think I just covered that in the last section.
That's why I was following this one up from that one. So
yeah, same thing. It's because when you get into those positions, you are appointed by the national board. You can be recommended by your state board for the position, but the national board doesn't have to follow the state board's recommendations. And we've seen it so far this past year. They've been removing people from positions of DRs and ADRs that don't fully align with what the board wants. And I don't know what the numbers we're up to now yet, but there's been a lot of them and a lot more than normal that we have. So something's going on that these people who have been appointed by previous national boards are being removed and replaced by people who are more aligned with our current national leadership. Why would we want to put ourselves in a position of having to agree with everything the national board does?
All right, I'm going to go on this one. I have not. I had talked about going for applying for area on a few different occasions. When I did mention it to my DR, I was kind of blown off the first time. The second time, by the time I was able to get my application and resume started and around, was about the time that we got decertified for this podcast. So I kind of felt that it was a moot point at that time to do that. It definitely had crossed my mind in the past many times about moving up in the steward system. So it's not something that I wasn't ever interested in. I definitely was. It's just timing-wise never was able to happen. Bill?
I've never considered it because of the fact that I was, busy enough in my own office in regards to grievances. It is an appointed position. It is a recommended by the DR with input from the ADRs and the state. Again, it's not something that the national steward system at the national level has to accept. They can consider it, and then they could blow it up on you. Again, since we've been decertified, it's kind of a mute point now. But in the past, if I was asked to do that, I probably would have, because I felt that I could have served more people effectively over the course of my assignment. And I also felt that they weren't getting the proper representation anyway. It's a bit like the state board. If you don't sign up on the state board, as you know, most state board policies mirror the national board policies. That's why the system works the way it is, moving up the chain, up the food ladder per se, to get to the national, and it hasn't worked for 20 years. Yes, I've considered it. No, I was never asked, and it's because of the fact that I'm just not one of those lackeys for the NSS or state politics either. I believe in being my own person, my own man, and I believe I represent most of the will of the people who are in this craft, union and non-union, and that they're the people I'm concerned with. I'm not concerned about the politics per se on my part, because of the fact that I don't believe in politics. I believe in service.
Okay, guys. What would you do if elected to help recruit new members?
Well, somebody said something about, getting it out on TV, well, not TV, but getting your customer base. But wouldn't that be neat to have a PSA, a public service announcement, with a carrier, or interviewing customers on your route, saying how much they enjoy having you there, how many times you saved a child or a dog or help an elderly neighbor, and to show how vital we are to the entire country. It's probably something the post office wouldn't finance, but I'm sure that the union itself, if you cut the expenses enough, you could probably put that out there and garner some attention for the rural craft itself, because we are a vital role in the American community. I think that would be a nice little gold star on your refrigerator, don't you?
How would I help recruit new members? And not necessarily new members. I'd want to recruit old members that have dropped out and recruit them back in, and that would be by regaining the trust of the craft. I mean, a good portion of the craft has lost trust in national leadership, and I would want to restore that trust and show them that we're actually working for them and not for what's in our best interest. Our best interest is the craft, not our personal gains. And I think that would definitely help recruit new members into the union, as well as bringing back those that have left because of their disdain and lack of representation. And I think I mentioned this on a couple episodes ago, and I would show up at local meetings, local picnics, wherever, as just another craft member. I wouldn't be coming in as a special guest or an official matter. I'd just be coming in as, hey, I'm just another member coming in to hang out with you guys and see how it's going. I mean, I think that's what we really need to do, is put ourselves out there with the craft and with the membership and be seen and talked to more than just, oh, well, you can go to your regional conference to talk to them, but then do you really get to talk to them? That's the thing, is we really, in order to recruit new membership into the union, is we really need to be available to the craft as a whole on all different levels and show that we are working for them. James?
Well, along those lines, I agree with Kristen. We need to not only recruit new members to join the craft, which can be done with a proper, strong contract that protects the craft and entices people to apply to this job for the wages, benefits, and work conditions that we negotiate in that contract. But also, I would be putting the national steward system to work. I would be putting stewards in these offices. I've met carriers that didn't know who their steward was 10, 15, 20 years into their career. So I would want our stewards going out and introducing themselves to the craft and asking, how can the leadership help you? How can the steward system help you? Because I think the biggest downfall of our union membership is the fact that the craft does not feel like they're listened to. Craft doesn't feel like they're being heard. And getting people out there to listen to the craft and send information up to the top of the chain, right up to the director of steward operations. And the director of steward operations sending information straight back down is going to be the biggest benefit of growing union membership. This podcast was designed to help strengthen the craft, help bring people together, help bring the craft together, and grow union membership. Because the union is only as strong as its weakest link. And the weakest link are the craft members who don't know anything about the contract, manuals, and their job description. So by strengthening our craft, you can strengthen the union. And a lot of people think that, people aren't going to pay dues even if you give them all the information. That's true. There are going to be people who aren't going to pay dues because they don't want to, or because they want to get everything for free. That's okay. There's a law for that. But you're going to get a lot of the people who have pulled their dues back into the union if you just listen to them. When I was at SWAC, a total of 240 people pulled their dues in 4 states. Imagine if those 240 people who wanted to pull their dues were asked, why do you feel you need to pull your dues? I'm sure the leadership could have fixed that and gotten them back into dues paying status. But instead, they turned around and decided to degrade them in front of dues paying members. The first way to fix things is to ask questions. Now you can go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to add, when we were talking about the stairs, it's actually the Wilbur Wood letter M44 in the POM section 617, which is 4 pages. It talks about how many flights of stairs is too many for a parcel delivery. It is accepted by the parties that when there is no working elevator in a building with more than 3 floors, that the item will either be delivered to an authorized location on the first floor, or a 3849 will be left in the customer's mailbox. So it is 3 or more floors, that does not have a working elevator. And I think I said more than 2 floors, yeah. So it's more than 3 floors.
Okay.
All right, I got a couple more. These ones are the ones that were in listener chat, so I'm just kind of going through them.
Go for it.
The arbitration ruling that put Rex into place, that it had to be implemented, and it has been. Would it be possible to renegotiate evaluation methods with this new contract now that the obligation of the arbitration has been met?
So, considering I deal in the law and stuff, an arbitration ruling is meant to be an agreement between the two parties and follow what the arbitrator said. If you want to change what the arbitrator said and mutually agree on it, you can, because the ruling was already made, finalized, and everything. You can change things after an arbitration ruling, as long as they are mutually agreed upon, because you'd be setting forth new contract language, whether it be in your national contract or in a MOU or similar. But it has to be mutually agreed upon. And if it's not, then you have to go back to the arbitrator for a ruling on it.
Phil, you have anything to add on that one?
No, he's covered that succinctly. It's until it is mutually agreed upon, it's non-binding, and the arbitrator can make the adjustments to that. So he's correct in that format, and that's how it should be.
Yep, I will have to agree. James basically covered that one on all bases. Thank you, James. You made that easy for the rest of us.
I try.
Why is every office so different if we fall under one contract? And how do you fix that? And that's where National Steward System, educated carriers. It's everybody. It has to be everybody coming together and standing their ground and making sure management upholds that contract.
Well, and it's the same reason why, you have a office like Josh's where you have 100+ carriers in there versus, Bumbletown, Iowa, which has, three routes in there. The postmaster is your mom. The clerks are your sisters and cousins. And, the other two people in there are your neighbors. I mean, there's a certain familiarity that, develops between those people that you can't get in a larger office. And they're more willing to work together. That doesn't underscore the fact that the contract is still a contract, but they're willing to work together. And that is the underlying problem with the post office, is that you can have a small office like that cooperating and everybody gets the job done versus offices like mine or Josh's or, anybody else's where you have, more than 20 carriers in there and everybody's going their separate ways and, they have their separate agendas. There's, people that the supervisor likes, doesn't like, but the problem of it is that they're not following the contract. So guess what? You're going to have, even though you have identical routes, you have the same exact contract, the MOUs are enforced and everything else. The atmosphere and working with management is different in almost every office. And it's a shame because I would like to work in a small office like that where you could work together and settle your differences without initiating a grievance process. But until that day comes and hell freezes over, we're all going to be different.
All right. Yeah. I think we all kind of... Did you have anything to add on that, James?
Well, basically, like I said, the National Steward System is the biggest thing that we have. And getting every steward to be the same information source in every single state and territory of the United States that the Postal Service operates in is the most important thing that our steward system can do. Because it's important for every steward to have the same information to be able to fight every single grievance the same way across the entire country. Sure, there are going to be regional things that have to be sorted out. It's understandable. What works in Michigan is not going to work in Texas, especially when you have weather differences and things like that. But the contract is national. The PO 603 is national. Your MOUs are national. Everything is national across the board when it comes to disputes between management and carriers. And if any carrier has a question, I want them to be able to go to any steward in the system and get the same answer, no matter what. So that is the only way we can solve this problem. This local MOU thing is a city thing. City carriers give local MOUs. We don't have that, and we shouldn't have that because it makes issues in these offices.
All right, one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight because it's after 9 o'clock. So, what about the hiring?
Eastern time.
Yeah, Eastern time. And I have to edit, so. Last question for this evening. What about the hiring process? Can this change, shorten the process somehow, maybe give it back to the office? Unfortunately, it's the employer that chooses their hiring process. And USPS is the employer, and however they feel to choose how to do the hiring process is basically on them. Am I correct, guys?
It's one of the things that's frustrating as hell, it's bad enough when it takes, 6 to 7 months to get a steward trained and certified. But when you're waiting 3 to 4 months to hire somebody who's looking for work and can't afford to be sitting on their hands for 3 to 4 months, it's very frustrating. Because one gentleman we have in our office, Drew, came into the office the day after he filled out an application online. The window clerk turned around and came to me and said, "Bill, can you talk to this gentleman?" So I went, introduced myself. We talked. I told him, I said, your form's in. Let's get the postmaster in on it. I says, after I get done with you, I says, I will go talk to him directly. I gave him my phone number. The guy called me for the next 3 days in a row. And I told him, I says, I'll go ask the postmaster again. Go ask. He was the shortest ever because it took 2 weeks to get him set up for training. But I had to hound the postmaster for 8 days straight to get this guy, put into the academy and everything. It shouldn't take that long. When you're short of people and you need somebody and they're coming day and after day after day, get a job, hire them. I mean, the drive and desire. And I told the postmaster and my supervisor, I said, this guy's motivated. We need to get him on board. We need to get him trained and into the system. I said, because, we're short 5 subs right now. And thank God that, the clerk did hand him off to me and I persevered. And now he's worked out, he's a PTF and he's second in line for the next route that comes up. And he's been an asset all around. So, yes, I think, the hiring process should go back to the local offices. The people they have in my district are incompetent. And we've seen people been out there for, 3 months waiting to get a job. And it's ludicrous because if they're looking for work, folks, they can't afford to sit around on their hands for 3 months.
Piggyback off of that. We have a hiring process that was designed and created by the Postal Service back when people were lining up out the door to work here. And granted, I'd love to have a contract with the Postal Service that makes people line up out the door again. But the fact of the matter is, even if they're lining up out the door today, these people aren't going to be willing to wait 3 or 4 months, especially with today's climate. They need a job now. They need a job yesterday to be able to pay for a lot of the stuff that we have today. And I know companies that have stricter background checks than the Postal Service does, and they're hiring people within 2 weeks of them applying, getting background checks done, getting fingerprints done, all that stuff. They work with the FAA, they work with Department of Defense, they work with, private industry securities, things like that, work with money systems, things like that they get their background checks way quicker than the post office does. The issue herein lies that the Postal Service doesn't want to change the system that they have because that means they'd have to train people. And as we have observed with Rex, the Postal Service doesn't like to train people. We see it with their management. Management doesn't know the contract, doesn't know rural, doesn't even know city rules and regulations. But yet they make them management. The fact is, the Postal Service is doing the bare minimum that they can get away with in order to stifle our system, to force us into these MOUs, force us into working carriers like dogs, 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day, 14 hours a day, because they aren't willing to adjust the process to the modern day. They aren't willing to make change. And sometimes change has to happen somewhere, somehow, in order to allow an industry, a company, or a government agency to continue to operate. And if they aren't willing to make that change, they're going to go the way of the dodo bird.
Alright, guys, I think we're gonna wind it down and call it a night. So, thank you guys for your questions. I will update the question forms and get them posted again. That way, y'all have any more questions for us, please feel free to fill out those forms. I'll post it again on the Discord channel and the Facebook page, as well as the Facebook group again. That way you guys can fill out the form and get that to us. As you know, we don't mention who you are or where you're from when we call out the questions. We're just answering, we're just doing the questions. We don't care who it came from. So, on that note, any final comments this evening, James?
We come on here for the craft. And one of the biggest comments that I have ever gotten on here about what the union leadership could do to help grow the craft and get things going was, oh, you know what would be even better? A weekly podcast put out by the leadership to address current issues and such. We could listen to it while on the route. Well, we already have the podcast. And the next step is your leadership. So the biggest thing we want to do is just help the craft. We're here for the craft. We talk to the craft. We listen to the craft. Because the biggest thing anybody in leadership can ever do is listen to the people they're leading. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
I sit there and I wonder how much change we can affect with our podcast. And I know that we've had people stay in the union. I know we've had people run for Stewart and win the elections. And we get enough feedback, on this site and others, so that I know that we are doing some good. Is it enough? Some good is better than what the national board is doing. So I'm proud of the fact that us as a group are willing to put ourselves out, our time and energy to help educate the craft, to help them understand that they have rights, that they are important, that we care. Because we're out there delivering just like you are every day. And it makes me immensely proud, even if we're fighting a losing battle, okay, we don't give up. We don't quit. And we don't shy away from the issues that we have to face every day as carriers. I'd like to thank everybody who listens, because of the fact that without you, there wouldn't be much reason for us to do this other than our own egos. And frankly, I can't even spell ego. But the fact of the matter is that we do care, and genuinely. And we would like for everybody who listens and subscribes to turn around and get others involved, because until we get more people involved, we can't affect change without you. And that's the most important part. You're the linchpin in changing the direction this union's heading. And God forbid we go into another year with Don Madsen as our president. Everybody go out and do your job as effectively, professionally, and safely as possible. Make sure, you do everything you're supposed to, get credit for what you're supposed to, get paid for what you're supposed to do. And then go home at the end of the day to your loved ones, because you are the most important delivery to your family and to us. God bless you.
Thank you, guys. I can't disagree with either of them have said. That's what we are here for. We're here for the craft. It's pretty much been a passion of mine since I first started. I got involved early on, and I'm still very, very much involved. And I don't plan on changing it. Whatever the future holds for us, it does. Whether it's, where, after National Convention, we're coming back to our routes, that's what it is. But we're still going to put up the good fight for the craft regardless. We're not going to But that's the thing is we want to see the people. You see the people all the time complaining about this and that, but are they doing anything to help the change? Are they getting involved? Are they trying to be a delegate? Are they going to their conventions? Are they going to their meetings? Or are they just venting and they're not doing anything to help themselves or help the craft? And we do. We do what we can to help the craft. I mean, I spent an hour and a half on the phone with a craft member from another state yesterday, basically just letting this carrier vent because they needed a vent. And, that was no problem for me. I happily do that to any one of you. Hey, I got a message that said, hey, give me a call this week sometime. Tell me what time works out for you. I gave them a call. We talked. They vented more than anything, but they just needed that extra ear that wasn't somebody in their office or in their local or that just they needed to get it out on what they're going through in their office. And that's what we're here for. We're here for you. And if there was a way that I could have helped them right then and there, I would have. Without a doubt. And that's how I feel for everybody. I'm an ear to vent to if needed. Unfortunately, I wish at this present time that I'd be able to help every carrier that has those toxic work environments or are dealing with bad management or bully coworkers or, whatever it may be. But at least I do care and I'm willing to listen, even at this present time. So, on that note, we're going to wrap this up tonight. We will be back next week. Normal time, normal place, all that good stuff. And till then, everybody stay safe this week. And
I'll leave that comment at right there because I could go on more and Kristen be editing for the next 45 minutes.